I'm speaking to you from the city of New Orleans, nearly empty, still partly underwater, and waiting for life and hope to return. Eastward from Lake Pontchartrain, across the Mississippi coast, to Alabama and into Florida, millions of lives were changed in a day by a cruel and wasteful storm.
It is the worst-case scenario experts have feared for years, a direct hit on New Orleans by Hurricane Katrina. It is a powerful and dangerous Category 5 hurricane.
80% of New Orleans flooded. The levees are broken, and they're having a difficult time trying to fix the situation.
Buildings have collapsed. There are reports from New Orleans of people trapped in buildings that have come down around them. They have made desperate calls to 911 asking for help, asking for rescue.
4 years after the frightening experience of September the 11th, Americans have every right to expect a more effective response in a time of emergency. When the federal government fails to meet such an obligation, I, as president, am responsible for the problem and for the solution. And all who question the future of the Crescent City need to know there is no way to imagine America without New Orleans, and this great city will rise again.
August 2005, New Orleans, Louisiana. Founded more than 280 years ago, New Orleans is shaped by music, food, faith, and tradition. Jazz drifts through its streets. Second lines wind through neighborhoods. Community is not just a word here, it is a way of life. Generations of families live side by side, bound by history, culture, and resilience. But alongside its richness, the city carries long-standing vulnerabilities. Much of New Orleans sits below sea level, surrounded by water. Its safety depends on an aging system of levees, pumps, and flood walls. Infrastructure built decades earlier and never designed to face the strongest storms. Over time, warnings are raised, reports written, but critical upgrades are delayed or ignored. Deep racial and economic inequalities further shape the city's risk. Wealthier, high-ground neighborhoods sit farther from the water. Poorer areas, home to many black communities, are concentrated in the lowest parts of the city, where flooding is most likely and protection is weakest. Where you live determines how safe you are. New Orleans has always lived with hurricanes. Storms are a seasonal threat, expected, tracked, and endured. Most pass with damage, but without catastrophe. But this time is different. Far out in the Atlantic, a storm is beginning to form. At first, it appears unremarkable. No one yet knows that it will test every weakness the city has carried for generations.
You are looking at Tropical Storm Katrina, and residents in South Florida are keeping a very close eye on the system. It could become a hurricane before it moves in late tomorrow or early Friday.
August 25th, 2005. A tropical storm is forming over the Atlantic, drawing the attention of forecasters and newsrooms across the country. Named Katrina, It has already moved through the Bahamas, gaining strength as it drifts westward. For now, it remains just another storm on the radar, noted but not yet causing widespread concern. Early that morning, Katrina strengthens into a hurricane and makes landfall on Keating Beach in South Florida. The impact is sharp, but brief. The storm passes overhead. The eye moves directly over the National Hurricane Center itself, where wind gusts reach 87 miles per hour. The force rattles the buildings and causes brief outages. Yet Florida holds. For many watching from the Gulf Coast, that matters. It feels like a storm they've seen before. Strong, but survivable. August 26, 2005. The storm appears to weaken. Sustained winds drop, and Katrina is downgraded to a tropical storm. The shift brings a sense of relief. Storms lose strength all the time, but the calm is deceptive. Around 5 a.m., the eye moves offshore into the Gulf of Mexico. At the same moment, forecasters adjust their models. The National Hurricane Center shifts Katrina's projected track away from the Florida Panhandle and toward the central Gulf Coast, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. The city of New Orleans now sits directly in its path. The threat is no longer theoretical, it is imminent. Louisiana Governor Kathleen Blanco acts immediately, declaring a state of emergency.
We're talking to the whole area right now and asking people to use good judgment to keep themselves safe, to stay out of harm's way.
But for many residents, the danger still feels distant. Another storm still unfolding somewhere out at sea.
Betsy's bringing in danger from a totally unexpected quarter. Her winds are pushing a 16-foot wall of water out of Lake Borgne in the Gulf, the greatest tidal surge in Louisiana history.
September 1965. New Orleans has endured devastating hurricanes before. In 1965, Hurricane Betsy struck the region with overwhelming force, leaving deep scars on the city and its people. Although the community worked to recover and rebuild, the sense of resilience that followed would later be tested again. 4 years later, Hurricane Camille barrels across the Mississippi coast. It devastates neighboring communities, but New Orleans is spared the worst. The predictions do not match the reality. Camille passes, leaving a city that survives again. These storms become reference points. They shape how residents judge danger, how they prepare or choose not to. Katrina, for many, feels like the storms they know, powerful but survivable. Yet beneath that confidence lies a fragile reality. Approximately 80% of New Orleans sits below sea level. The city's survival depends entirely on a network of levees, flood walls, and pumps. Without them, water is not just a nuisance, it is a threat that can consume entire neighborhoods. As Katrina approaches, the stage is set. The lessons of the past are there, but the city's defenses remain vulnerable, and the next storm will test them in ways no one fully anticipates. August 27th, 2005. Around 5 a.m., the storm strengthens again. Now a Category 3 hurricane.
All right, let's show you Katrina's projected path, and it is a scary one. Expected landfall on Monday along the Gulf Coast. Take precautions. Right now, it's a Category 3. Expected to be a Category 4 when it makes second landfall again on Monday.
As its power intensifies and forecasts grow more uncertain, the mood of the coverage turns more serious.
The eye feature is again becoming visible. It went through a little eye wall replacement cycle this morning, which actually helped it to weaken a little bit. But usually once these eye walls get a little more organized, it starts to gain more strength.
As the morning unfolds, urgency spreads across the region. By mid-morning, multiple parishes along the Gulf Coast issue mandatory evacuation orders. Highways heading north grow increasingly congested as residents rush to evacuate. While the sudden demand quickly exhausts fuel supplies and available lodging. For some, the decision is already made. It's time to leave. In New Orleans, the response is more cautious. Late in the afternoon, Mayor Ray Nagin declares a state of emergency and calls for a voluntary evacuation of the city.
Well, at this point, there are no mandatory evacuations. It is only what they say, quote, a strongly recommended evacuation.
You have some time. I'm not advising an evacuation at this point in time. We are following the state's contraflow plan. The state's evacuation plan, I should say.
He stops short of making it mandatory, explaining that the state's evacuation plan prioritizes surrounding low-lying parishes first, an effort to avoid gridlocked escape routes. A full evacuation, he says, will come closer to landfall. Still, the warning is clear. Residents in the city's most vulnerable areas, places like Algiers and the lower Ninth Ward, are urged to get a head start. For those who cannot leave, the Superdome will be open as a shelter of last resort, intended primarily for people with special needs. Officials advise residents to bring their own food, water, and basic supplies, enough to last several days. Inside the dome, preparations are modest. The National Guard delivers truckloads of water and military rations, enough to support thousands for a short period of time. On paper, the plan is in place. But across the city, the mood remains uneven. Many residents hesitate. Some cannot afford to leave. Others choose not to. August 28th, 2005. 12:40 a.m. Katrina surges to Category 4. With winds howling at 145 miles per hour. The Gulf churns, and the storm's eye grows wider, hungering for the coast. By sunrise, the hurricane reaches its peak, Category 5, with sustained winds of 175 miles per hour.
It is the worst-case scenario experts have feared for years, a direct hit on New Orleans by Hurricane Katrina. It is a powerful and dangerous Category 5 hurricane.
If it does not weaken before it makes landfall, it'll be the second strongest hurricane that has ever hit the United States.
The storm has become almost unimaginable in scale. For the people of New Orleans, there is no longer time to debate.
Well, if you live in New Orleans, you should be leaving. A mandatory evacuation is underway for the city, and the mayor of New Orleans called Hurricane Katrina a once-in-a-lifetime event.
The storm surge most likely will topple our levee system. So we are preparing to deal with that also. So that's why we're ordering a mandatory evacuation.
The warning is clear. The storm the city has feared for years is finally here. Tens of thousands scramble to leave, while thousands more prepare to ride it out. By noon, the Louisiana Superdome opens as a shelter of last resort for those unable to evacuate. 20,000 people pour inside.
Keep in mind, a hurricane with high winds most likely will knock out all electricity in the city, and therefore the Superdome is not going to be a very comfortable place.
Thousands of National Guard troops are deployed across the city as the people of New Orleans brace and wait for Katrina to strike.
The first choice for every citizen is to figure out a way to leave the city.
August 29th, 2005. Around 4:30 a.m., the first levees along the Industrial Canal give way. Under the force of a 9-foot storm surge, protective barriers collapse, allowing water to rush into already vulnerable neighborhoods. By 5 a.m., the lights go out in the Superdome, plunging the shelter into darkness as unease ripples through the waiting crowds. An hour later, at 6:10 a.m., Katrina finally makes landfall near Burras, Louisiana, about 60 miles southeast of New Orleans. This time as a strong Category 3 hurricane.
I understand there's been a lot of damage in New Orleans. We had a report that the causeway, the Pontchartrain Causeway, may have flooded on the southern side a little bit. Fortunately, have hardly seen anybody out on the roadways, and that's definitely good news. Everybody battening down and riding this one out.
Water rushes through the Mississippi Gulf outlet and Lake Bourne, flowing toward the lower 9th Ward. Levees along the eastern side of the outlet are overtopped or destroyed, and water surges into the streets and homes.
At least one levee has broken in New Orleans, leading to some localized flooding, but there could be far worse still to come as the storm surge and as the rainfall from Hurricane Katrina hits.
Whole neighborhoods quickly become submerged. The city's levee system, more than 40 years old, proves unable to withstand the pressure of the surging waters. As the flood spreads and critical infrastructure gives way, what began as a natural storm turns into a full-scale man-made disaster. By 6:30 a.m., the storm knocks out electricity across much of New Orleans, leaving homes, businesses, and streets without power. Communication and emergency coordination break down almost immediately. Emergency workers answer numerous calls from residents trapped in trees and attics, but in some cases, the lines are cut, leaving desperate pleas unanswered.
So I'm gonna die. The water is steady rising in the attic, ma'am. I'm gonna drown in the attic. I'm inside the location with you.
I'm in here. I got a handicapped girl, and I got a baby that's on the pump machine. And we in the bed. He's on a ventilator, but he's in the bed. Our water is coming up.
By evening, nearly 80% of the city is underwater. The scale is staggering. The city is no longer just facing a hurricane. It is facing chaos.
90% of New Orleans flooded. The levees have broken, and they're having a difficult time trying to fix the situation.
Buildings have collapsed. There are reports from New Orleans of people trapped in buildings that have come down around them.
It's indescribable. The devastation in so many places is just total. I mean, from the railroad to the beach, for 25 or 30 miles, there's not 90% of the structures are just totally destroyed.
August 30th, 2005, 5:09 a.m. The storm has moved on, leaving clear skies over New Orleans. Yet the city remains underwater in a heavy silence. In the days that follow, survival becomes the only priority. Families search for missing loved ones and begin to grasp the growing number of lives lost. Thousands of residents, many who stayed behind as the water rose, flood into the Superdome and the Convention Center. Some arrive too late, and not everyone can get inside. Many remain on the streets, navigating flooded roads, seeking shelter, and facing the uncertainty of what comes next. Inside the shelters, conditions quickly deteriorate. Rain leaks through holes in the Superdome roof, soaking floors and blankets. Food and water are in short supply. Military rations brought in before the storm run out within days. People go hungry. Showers and proper sanitation are unavailable. Anxiety spreads as families struggle to stay together, and no one knows how long they will be trapped or when help will arrive. Rescue missions begin almost immediately in some areas, but large-scale organized efforts are delayed by days due to flooding, damaged infrastructure, and poor coordination. For many, the help they were promised seems to drift further away with each rising tide. Over the next 2 days, more coordinated efforts reach the hardest-hit neighborhoods, though it quickly becomes clear that some areas receive help faster than others. Boats and helicopters search for survivors. Soldiers, first responders, and neighbors work tirelessly. Yet, even as rescues expand, thousands remain stranded, waiting, watching, and hoping. The scale of devastation is overwhelming, and the city's damaged infrastructure makes every effort a struggle. By the third day, frustration sets in. Shock gives way to anger. People begin questioning the delays, the breakdowns, and why help still hasn't reached them. What happened here no longer feels like just a natural disaster, but a crisis made worse by human failure. September 1st, 2005. As the waters begin to recede, attention turns to the people left behind and to those meant to protect them. Local, state, and federal agencies struggle to coordinate. FEMA's delayed response draws scrutiny as supplies and personnel trickle in too slowly.
Why weren't you people doing this days ago?
Sir, that's just it. We were doing this days ago.
But you weren't here on the ground.
No.
You weren't organizing the crowds.
We couldn't get here.
Why not? You're soldiers.
Well, the thing is, I mean, there's water. If there's water, we can't get to it. You have to realize places like this were underwater 2 days ago.
But if I can get here, then you can get here. You've got a helicopter. I haven't.
The slow response hits hardest in low-income and predominantly black neighborhoods. Days pass with little visible assistance. Promises are made, but relief feels distant. The longer the wait, the more frustration builds, anger rising in communities that feel abandoned when they need help most.
I'm finding it difficult to believe. You're telling me the police are helping nobody here?
The police ain't helping nobody at all. I mean, they'll tell you where you can go, but you got no transportation. How you gonna go? Walk? I mean, they bring us to a shelter 7 miles down the road. They give us a bottle of water, talking about lay down inside the school.
Inside the Superdome, thousands remain for nearly 6 days, waiting for evacuation that does not come quickly enough. Supplies thin out, medical needs grow urgent, and exhaustion sets in.
They've taken hours after hours to get here. We've been waiting hours, and the sun is beaming, it's real hot, it's stinking out here. It's just disgusting and frustrating. And we are human beings, and they're treating us like we're criminals.
4 days.
4 days.
4 days.
Waiting on transportation to get out the city.
No water, no food.
No food.
We got babies out here. We got handicapped people.
Been out here all day.
Yeah, people dying in the We're starving out here.
As a result, some attempt to leave on their own. On the Crescent City Connection Bridge, hundreds head out on foot in search of safety, only to be stopped and turned back by law enforcement from neighboring areas.
They told us they sent us here. We were safer on the bridge. They got murderers, killers.
For many, it feels like there is no way forward. Those who stay are stranded, and those trying to escape are blocked.
There are 6 bodies upstairs on the 3rd floor. This morning I found one lady in a wheelchair dead in the ladies' bathroom and another lady laying on the floor by the ladies' bathroom dead. And then there's this guy right here that's dead that has been sitting out here for a while.
You know, it's really bad, you know what I mean? They got disease in there, they got dead bodies. The bathrooms, we haven't used it since like Tuesday. And then when you have to really use it, you have to use it almost anywhere.
As criticism of the response continues to grow, national attention intensifies. Cameras turn toward Washington, waiting to see how the federal government will act.
The magnitude of responding to a crisis over a disaster area that is larger than the size of Great Britain has created tremendous problems that have strained state and local capabilities. The result is that many of our citizens simply are not getting the help they need, especially in New Orleans. And that is unacceptable.
In the days after the storm, President George W. Bush travels to survey the damage, viewing the flooded city from Air Force One as it passes overhead without landing.
President Bush had Air Force One descend to 2,500 feet and fly over the disaster area for about 35 minutes.
The image becomes deeply controversial. For many, this becomes a symbol of detachment, deepening the anger and sense that the federal response is disconnected from the reality on the ground.
President Bush once again showed a lack of instant, immediate leadership.
And now we have just horrendous news overnight that has come our way. The Associated Press is reporting this morning that looting is out of control. Mayor Ray Nagin has ordered virtually the entire police force to abandon search and rescue efforts and focus on these brazen pack of thieves.
We have doubled the police force, doubled the National Guard force that we had for Katrina. And looters will go directly to jail.
Amid the desperation, the media paints residents themselves as the problem.
While natural disasters can highlight the best in people, it can also bring out the worst. Now in New Orleans and other places, looters are running free.
A lot of the people here say they don't feel bad taking the stuff. One, because they need it. But two, they said the police said it was okay.
Reports of looting dominate headlines, framing black residents taking food from stores as criminals, while similar survival actions in wealthier, whiter neighborhoods are largely ignored.
Many high-ranking members in the New Orleans Police Department were called to a meeting at the shuttered Harrah's Casino downtown, and they were told by the man in charge to shoot looters.
Reports show police carrying firearms to enforce order, sometimes threatening survivors, shooting at looters, or patrolling streets heavily. Misinformation and biased reporting begin to divide people, spreading mistrust and setting neighborhoods against each other.
They're gone, and we don't want them back.
In this raw, racially divided city, there are some who welcome the fact that the poorest have no homes to return to, saying the city is now better off, with less crime and less drugs.
You're not sorry that a lot of these people have left?
God, no. I hope they don't come back.
Fear and anger ripple through communities. In areas like Algiers Point, some residents take matters into their own hands, using guns to defend their property.
This gun shop selling more weapons and ammunition than ever before.
I think it's really smart to have something to protect yourself. And I just haven't had a pistol in years, and I feel the need for it right now.
Social division, already deep, widened under pressure. The city is no longer just flooded, it's fractured. And yet, beneath the tension and suspicion, one truth remains. People are simply trying to survive. September 4th, 2005. The storm has passed, but the city is far from calm.
Well, if it was a sinister drive into New Orleans this morning, it's an even eerier feeling being right in the center of it now. Almost every shop here has been looted. Emergency vehicles are left stranded in the water.
Most shelters have been evacuated, including the Superdome. Yet tens of thousands of residents remain displaced.
Getting ready to make some more coffee here.
Christian groups have given Brian food, and he now camps beneath the stars, still marveling at how he survived a surge of ocean water 25 feet high. You're sweeping the floor today. Why are you doing that when you haven't got any walls?
Well, you know, this is home. We have we like to keep it nice and clean. I mean, this is where we live right now. We have no other place to go. I mean, we have company come by all the time, so we like to keep it presentable.
1 mile back, and Brian's former neighbors have pitched their tents in the car park of a shopping mall, picking through Salvation Army boxes in search of clothes that might fit. How are you going to pick your life up again? You've got no job, no house, you're living in a tent.
I don't know. I don't know.
Emergency crews move through the city, checking homes, streets, and debris. Bodies are discovered, victims claimed, and for many families, the search for loved ones continues. The scale of the loss is staggering, and grief hangs over neighborhoods still marked by destruction.
I was working in this bar the night before the hurricane came through, but I mean, it's gone. There's nothing left. There's absolutely nothing left, except for a sign. It's no longer here, and I no longer have a job.
This is downtown New Orleans, so you just, I mean, look at this. I mean, there's nothing left. I mean, this is a ghost town. I mean, it is a total ghost town. I mean, there's nothing left of it. I mean, there's absolutely nothing left of it.
Hundreds of thousands of residents have been forced from their homes, scattered across the country, traveling wherever temporary shelter can be found. Some move to nearby states, others to distant cities, carrying only what they could salvage. For others, leaving is not an option.
Most of this city's population have fled, but those who remain are desperate. They've been abandoned by their government, and that this can happen in an American city in the 21st century almost defies belief.
They stay behind, trying to rebuild their homes amid the wreckage, facing the overwhelming challenge of restoring lives while basic services remain limited.
It's like a ghost town, but you very quickly realize that in between all these destroyed homes, there are people who are trying to cut out a living, and this area still has no electricity and no water. Billions in aid, but not, it seems, a penny to help this 84-year-old struggling to rebuild. It appears hopeless, but Herbert just wants his wife and scattered family home.
The city hasn't done anything for me. I've done it all on my own. There is no place like home.
In the months that follow, some neighborhoods are restored, returning slowly to the rhythms of daily life, while others are left behind, abandoned, or transformed through gentrification.
Because here in the lower ninth, the city still has no plan for this area, the cruelest twist is that those trying to rebuild their homes could yet be bulldozed.
Access to aid and resources is unequal, with wealthier areas receiving faster repairs and rebuilding support, while low-income and predominantly black neighborhoods often wait longer for assistance, exposing stark inequalities in recovery.
You can only wonder. Here, no water or electric. 4 miles away in the business district, I found over $12 million being spent on new palm trees and walkways. I tried to catch the mayor and ask how he's comfortable insisting New Orleans is back in business. To the people in the lower ninth who've told us they've got no water, and you're saying you're open for business.
Oh, I think it's something that I wish I could fix, but there's no magic wand, and it's just going to take some time for us to restore an area that was devastated twice.
For many, the disaster does not end with the storm. The struggle to reclaim homes, neighborhoods, and community becomes the new reality. To this day, New Orleans has rebuilt much of what was lost. Neighborhoods once flooded have been restored. Businesses reopened, and the city's culture has reemerged into the streets.
People pulled together in some amazing ways just to do something as simple as make sure somebody could come back home, so they rebuilt a roof or helped someone to find a job. There's some things that I don't know if they ever will change, and it's something about the spirit of New Orleans.
Music plays again in the French Quarter, parades return, and daily life carries on. The population, while changed, has grown back over the years, and the city stands as a symbol of resilience. In the years following Katrina, New Orleans undertook a massive effort to rebuild and strengthen its defenses. Levee systems were reinforced, flood walls and pumping stations upgraded. Emergency response plans were revised, and new policies introduced.
Well, it's definitely a wake-up call that things need to be improved, and certainly we thought we had protection at the time, and now we do. Modeling and data collection and that type of thing has, gone a long way since the original levees were built to look at what kind of heights you need to protect against.
The process, however, took years of investment and political debate. In total, federal, state, and local spending on reconstruction and infrastructure upgrades exceeded $125 billion, highlighting both the scale of the destruction and the enormous effort required to restore the city. Yet, even as physical protections have strengthened, the broader threat has not disappeared. With rising sea levels and increasingly intense storms continuing to place the region at risk. Katrina left a lasting imprint on how disasters are understood and managed in the United States, shaping preparedness strategies and influencing responses to later hurricanes. At the same time, it exposed deep inequalities in who is protected and whose communities recover first when disaster strikes.
The recovery was racist, straight up, and classes. People who had money and people that were black and brown suffered the most and are still suffering the most.
Those disparities did not vanish with the floodwaters. They remain part of the conversation whenever new storms approach vulnerable coastlines.
The first people to get flooded is us. And we keep falling through the cracks in the systems because it's not worth saving. Young people in my generation are having to move out for jobs, and the insecurity of, okay, you know what, if another storm comes, will I come back home to even have a house here?
New Orleans moves forward, but the legacy of Katrina remains embedded in its landscape and its people. The storm exposed vulnerabilities that extend far beyond weather, forcing the nation to confront the social and political systems that failed so many. The lessons remain present, carried into every hurricane season that follows.